I have the first question.
It's the rest. Please, let's get the rest.
Let's definitely chat more. Let's get
So round two.
Good afternoon, colleagues. We're waiting for the slides to be up on the screen. So as soon as we manage to do that, probably in another 30, 40 seconds, or maybe more, we'll get started. Thanks. Okay, so let's get started. Once again, good afternoon to everyone here, and thanks for joining us. As you can see, this side event is attempts to showcase support opportunities that are available for developing countries to implement transparency arrangements under the convention as well as Paris Agreement. The basic idea here is quite simple. It is really to bring support opportunities closer to the ground, so that this event in one form or another helps promote networking, helps you get to know each other, so that it then triggers further discussion and ultimately results in concrete support that most developing countries need. For us in the Secretariat, 31st December 2024 is a big milestone, because that is the ultimate deadline for submission of first biennial transparency report, which in non-UNFCCC lingo is nothing but the first progress report on implementation of Paris Agreement. So it is quite significant, and my hope is that at the end of that deadline, we will be able to get a clear snapshot of how each country, each government is performing against the pledges, commitments that they have put forward. And from that end, I think it's a significant milestone in the climate change process. And our vision in the Secretariat is to see 194 biennial transparency reports. For that vision to realize, there are mainly two key actors. The first is countries and the governments themselves, because you should be the one who takes the initiative, who gets the ball rolling. And the second key partner here is international community, to help you, to assist you in any possible way. Some of you may be aware of this informal network that we have been maintaining for last couple of years now, the so-called ETF group of friends. And I have challenged this group that this group has a critical role to play, because at the end of the day, most developing countries will need some form of assistance. So that is the primary goal behind inviting our key partners here. And I really wish to thank all of them for taking time off from their busy schedule and speak here with us and be here with us. So we'll have this session in two parts. The first will, and that's mainly because of the logistics here. We cannot fit all the panel members here. So first we'll have a shorter segment around Jeff and kind of support through Jeff. And then in the second, and then we'll excuse Cheese and Fatima Zara from podium, and then I'll invite our other equally important partners here to be on podium and share the kind of support opportunities that is available through them. So without further much ado, let me invite Cheese to talk on GF.
Thank you very much, Jagme, and thanks for also inviting us to this very important side event. So I came here on Tuesday, and I was sort of informed about some of the deliberations that have been taking place, and obviously I'm convinced than ever that this kind of outreach, as well as really trying to convey the support opportunities to countries, is of utmost importance at this juncture, as well as moving forward. So next slide, please. So I would like to give a very short presentation on how the GEF is here to support the countries for the ETF. And this slide in front of you basically shows the 3 building blocks of the support that we are providing in partnership with the agencies such as what Fatima Zahra will talk about on the ETF. The very first one is obviously how can the countries be supported to prepare the reports themselves. So for this, we're talking about the support for the BTRs as well as national communications. The second block is about building capacity as well as supporting countries to really enhance their readiness in a way to be able to address the Article 13 requirements as well as to do this in a timely manner. And this is the CBIT, Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency. And the third element is how can we actually provide a platform for countries to be able to access information as well as the stopgap measures to really enable them to have the support on a consistent basis. So that's a global support. It's the global support program that is on the last block. Next slide, please. So very quickly, here's an overview of the GEF support to the BTRs. The good news is that within the past year, since we were at the last SBEs, the number of countries that have come to the GEF to access support for the BTR preparations has really, really multiplied. It's 4 times the number of countries we had last year. So that in itself to us is very, very good news. As of now, we have 68 countries receiving access to 86 BTRs. And the reason why you have more BTRs than the countries is because you can actually access resources for more than 1 BTR at once. So this is one message that I wanted to clarify. And obviously, every technically proposal that we get, we will support right away. And so far, we have provided over $60 million of BTR support, and we are obviously ready to continue to do this on an expedited basis and get the word out to the countries about the modalities that could support your BTR preparation needs. Most of the countries have come to us and utilize the set-aside resources, so you don't need to use your national allocation for climate change mitigations. There are resources that have been put aside that you can access to prepare your BTRs. So this is not a situation where you have to make choices on the GEF resource that could be accessed from you. Please just come and try to access it. There is a number of countries that have decided, Brazil, India, Malaysia, Mexico, Nigeria, decided to go above and beyond the full cost set-aside resources that you have, and they have done that by tapping into their national GEF allocation called the STAR. But you do not need to do this. Most of the countries should be able to come to us and access the resources on a full cost basis. So far, we have 3 agencies, UNEP, UNDP, and FAO, that could help you prepare your BTR as GF agencies. And of course, since we have 18 GF agencies, the choice is also yours to explore others that might be able to help you. Next slide, please. On the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency, CBIT, the support for the CBIT became available to countries by COP22. So the first 3 projects, I think we already had support in November of 2016. So we have so far supported 89 projects in 87 countries. $147 million have been allocated. We will continue to support CBIT upon request as per what's been stated in the Paris Agreement decision. Some of the CBIT projects have been completed in 11 countries. Most of them are actually under implementation. So it's fair to say the capacity train left the station and keeps going. And then there is the report preparation train that is being, I would say, benefiting from the capacity support that has been provided from the CBIT. Regional distribution is very equitable, and we also have a number of global projects that will support common themes across the countries that would require some targeted interventions as well as targeted support. For the CBIT, we have a larger number of agencies, including Conservation International, FAO, FECO, which is a national agency in China that's accredited, Inter-American Development Bank, UNEP, UNDP, and WWF US. So, like the BTRs, if you would like to work with another of the GF agencies, the choice is yours. Next slide, please. This is just a quick overview of what the CBIT projects are supporting. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but this is only to show that you have a choice as a country to let us know what your priorities are for the capacity support. A lot of times those are on the mitigation progress. Many countries are allocating resources from the CBIT to support adaptation, but also quite a number of countries are really looking into how you enhance the NDCs as well as your policy environment. And what's important for us to stress is we're doing the support so that there is the foundation within your country to enable you to prepare the BTRs. Next slide, please. Very quickly, I'm sharing this information so that you have a better sense of what's going to be quicker for you to access resources right at this moment, because we have less than 2 years to go. BTR requests under $1 million, those are done in an expedited manner. It's a matter of days and weeks for you to get it cleared and get the resources. Requests over $2 million, because they are to go to the GF Council, which meets twice a year, it's going to take you inherently more time for the support to be cleared and reaching the countries. So at this juncture, we really are encouraging the remaining countries to take advantage of the expedited support opportunities that we have that have been already chosen by a number of countries. Next slide, please. So support to BTRs under the current GF8 period, there have been an agreement to put a lot more resources for this kind of support. It's $145 million. Cost structure, and this has been an important topic for many countries. We had a number of consultations on coming up with a cost structure for the GEF, and based on the last round of consultations, we agreed that we will increase, if you will, increase the resource availability per report to the countries as a standalone, also for top-up measures, and also for bundling between national communications and national communications and the BTR. I'm happy to give you additional information on those. And to stress one more time, in the GEF8 period, it is possible for the countries to come and access resources from 2 BTRs. I know this has been an issue of some concerns for some countries, that they don't want to see the gap in the support as well as a continuation of efforts. Just to make this clear, it is feasible for you to access resources from 2 BTRs as well as and 1 national communications as a bundle to move forward. It says a growing demand. To be honest, we really would like to see more this year. We are making a concerted effort, thanks with the cooperation with the CCC Secretariat as well as partners, to get the word out and to make sure that the countries can come to us and can access resources as quickly as possible to as many countries as possible. And just rest assured, we have set aside the resources to support the countries, so we really would like you to come to us and continue the train that towards the December 31st, 2024, I guess, station that's just around the corner. So with that, thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Cheese. Just to echo one message that you put it out there, which is to access resources as soon as possible if you have not done that. And probably it is only instance where support provider had to beg the recipient to come and take money, which is, yes. But on a serious note, I think it is about time that you initiate the process as soon as possible, if that has not happened yet, because besides everything else, failure to respect the deadline of 31st December can potentially draw attention of implementation and compliance committee, because one of the elements or factors or indicators that can draw attention of that committee is failure to submit information under Article 7 and 9. And Article 13.7 and 13.9. And 13.7 is tracking progress of NDCs and inventories, which are two mandatory information that all parties are expected to submit, although SIDS and LDCs, because of their special circumstances, they have discretion. But for non-LDC, non-SIDS, there are implications for failing to respect the deadline. So I do hope that you take away this as one of the key messages from this session here. Let's move to Fatima Zara, and then after that, we can have a quick round of Q&A, and then we will excuse you.
Thank you very much, Jigme, for this opportunity to present about the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency Global Support Program, in short, CEEB GSP. We know we have not chosen the easiest of names, so everyone is having a bit of trouble retaining the name of the project, but I repeat it, CEEB GSP, very easy. Next slide, please. So basically, this is a project that's the continuation of two previous projects, the CEEB Global Coordination Platform and the Global Support Program. So that's why we were very creative and inventive and just merged the two names together, so CEEB GSP. So this project is basically funded by Jeff, implemented by UNEP, and executed by the UNEP-Copenhagen Climate Center. So the main objectives of the project is really to support countries in the transition towards the enhanced transparency framework and the BTRs. As both Jigme and Chiz have highlighted, it is really now crunch time for countries to get started with the BTR, to be able to submit it by the deadline of December 2024. So our support does not substitute the support provided through CEEB and enabling activities, but it comes as an addition to help countries fill in the gaps that they might have in their projects and build further capacity. It provides also the possibility for regional exchanges and learning from experience. But I will get a bit more into details on that a bit later. The second objective of this project is also to provide the community, the global transparency community, with a platform that can have all information about transparency and constitute kind of one-stop shop for transparency. At least that's our ambition. And the third objective is helping countries mainstream gender considerations in climate transparency. So we have these three objectives for this project. Next slide, please. Yeah. So basically, for the first, the second objective that I have mentioned, the one-stop shop for transparency. So the aim is really that this platform that we are currently finalizing provides all information about transparency and is useful to all transparency practitioners. I will not go too much in details in that, and I would like to invite you to come tomorrow to our launch event, where we will be launching the climate transparency platform. Stefania, if you could please, the next slide. So here is a bit more information on where you can find the event. So it's tomorrow from 11 to 13:30 in IDOS, the German Institute for Sustainable Development. It's very easy to get to. It's 5 minutes. So I invite you all to come and join us for the launch event, where we will be presenting the climate transparency platform. Next slide, please. So then, for the modalities of supports that are provided by the CEEB Global Support Program, basically we are concentrating on on 5 aspects. So first, we are producing a number of knowledge products, and for that we are trying to see what the country need. Basically, it's a need-based knowledge product development. So we don't want just to develop knowledge products and also duplicate what has been done, but we would like to have something that's useful. So currently we are trying to coordinate with various countries in terms of needs, and also with the various support providers, because many have a lot of knowledge products on the pipeline, so it does not make sense to duplicate. So we are currently working on defining the first batch of knowledge products that we will be producing. The second aspect is support for mainstreaming gender in transparency. So to that end, we will be updating a gender toolkit that has been developed under the previous program, the Global Support Program, so to take into account the needs of the BTR and the enhanced transparency framework. And once that's developed, we will provide training to countries in a regional basis to all countries on this toolkit, and we will start providing assistance in the implementation of this gender toolkit for countries that are interested by this aspect. The third aspect is basically the quality review of transparency reports. So the objective is to enhance the quality of submission of UNFCCC. So we do the quality review of NCs, BURs, inventories, and hopefully in the next few years also BTRs, so that when countries submit to UNFCCC, they don't have as many issues raised as if the review has not been done initially. Then we are also having a global workshop. So currently we are finalizing the dates for the global workshop, and hopefully we can make some announcements quite soon. Then the last aspect, and that's kind of the big chunk of work in the project, is the transparency networks. So we are providing the support through the regional networks. So we have 10 networks currently. Next slide, please. So we have 10 transparency networks covering the whole globe. We have a network for Spanish-speaking Latin America, for Anglophone Caribbean, for the Lusophone cluster, Middle East and North Africa, the Francophone network, Anglophone Africa network, Eurasia, Central Asia and the Caucasus, Asia and the Pacific. We are currently implementing 2 networks that are the Francophone and the Lusophone cluster in collaboration with the UNDP. Next slide, please. So basically our approach to transparency in these networks was that we started by asking nominations for various focal points for the projects, but also various thematic areas of transparency. And the aim is to start trying to constitute communities of practice on the various thematics of transparency in each of the networks. We have then carried the capacity need assessment, so quite a comprehensive assessments that we have done. And based on that, we have defined the priorities and the work plans for each of the networks. And then we have launched the networks. So currently we have 8 networks that have been launched. We have 2 that are still, we have started the work in one additional network, which is Eurasia, and we are hoping to start also in the MENA very soon. Then, based on the work program that we have developed in close consultation with countries, we have started with the provision of support. Next slide, please. So this is just to show you the results of the capacity need assessments that we have done. We have comprehensive reports that you can find in the climate transparency platform as of tomorrow. And then we have, based on that, summarized it into flyers that can be easily, where the results can be easily shown through graphics and so on. So please don't hesitate to have a look at them and get back to us if you have any questions. Next slide, please. So based on this assessment, what we have defined or identified as main areas of support are, I think it's kind of no surprise, still GHG inventories, even though from the assessment we have seen that the inventory part is the area that is most developed, where countries have, in the overall assessment, is kind of like from good to fair. But nevertheless, there is still a lot of needs in supporting the inventories and the application of the IPCC guidelines and the software. We have also a lot of needs that have been identified related to GHG emission projections, so mitigation assessments and modeling tools. And also, no surprise, NDC tracking. So this is one of the main areas also that we have seen as a need coming from countries. And of course, also adaptation, impacts and vulnerabilities. Loss and damage is a subject that came also a lot. And support needed and received, without forgetting also, of course, the institutional arrangements for transparency. Next slide, please. So based on this, we have started providing support. So currently we have done quite a lot of workshops in person. So until now we have done 8 workshops. The main topics were basically the NDC tracking and the general ETF, but also looking at the intersection between adaptation, the synergies between the reporting for adaptation and mitigation. So we are deploying also this year. As you can see from the slide, I will not go too much into details on it. So we will be having an in-person workshop in each of the networks this year. And the main focus would be NDC tracking, support needed and received, and for a couple of networks, general ETF requirements, because we have noticed that they need to start a little bit from the start. And then we have also contributed and supported the CGE workshops this year that are focused on adaptation. Next slide, please. We have also one of the main elements also of the project is the South-South exchange and the sharing of experience. So we have done quite a lot of webinars to share experience, but also on various subjects. So I let you see that later. Next slide, please. Then the other main activities are the direct support to countries. So as I mentioned, we we are here to fill the gaps from the enabling activities and CBIT, and countries can ask us for support, like pointed support that they need in their transparency efforts for the transition. And countries can access the support through the networks or through also a CBIT GSP request support templates that can be also found in the transparency platform also as of tomorrow. Next slide, please. So here, just to give you a little bit of an idea of the type of support that we have provided so far, but also like what could be the possibilities. The other aspect that I have mentioned previously is the quality reviews of transparency reports. So until now, we have done 23 quality reviews of NCs, BORs, and national inventories. And here as well, countries can access this support either through their GEF implementing agency or by contacting us directly. Next, please. And finally, just for you to meet the team, so please don't hesitate to get in contact with any of us if you need any support or if you need more information about the project. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're a bit, yeah. We're a bit behind the schedule, so unfortunately we'll not have much time for Q&A, but we can take up 3 questions if you have any. Any questions to the 2 presentations? Yeah. If you can quickly introduce yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Jenny Mager from the Ministry of Chile. My question is for Fatima, and maybe also for the Jeff, because here we have 2 funds to work on transparency. And I think it's really important to have a differentiation, as you mentioned, that because there is a different phase of implementation in each country, and it's regarding to create capacities, it's really important to have this differentiation. Because sometimes we have very basic courses and it's not useful for countries that are more advanced. So it's really important to have it in mind in programming new capacity building events. These conditions for different countries, even though maybe are not part of the same region, but sometimes it's really good to have this group of with different levels of advance in the matter of transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Yeah, Kaka.
Thank you, Kaka from Georgia. Thanks for the presentations. Fatima, I have a question to you. So you have spoken about this global platform that is operating for the CBIT. At the beginning, we were all observing a very nice launch of the platform. Then we all went in a pandemic process that a little bit terminated the platform because of the CBIT's implementation itself. But what I'm wondering, based on the experience that you have already gained, what can we say? What is the main asset of this platform for the countries that is sort of the unique niche that created under the CBT? Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll invite Cheese first to react, and then after that Fatima Zara to, yeah, so please.
Thank you very quickly. Chile, you raise a good point. I think there needs to be targeted capacity building as well as technical assistance support according to the needs of the countries, and sometimes not all the countries have the same needs, and some would need more deeper dives as well as more sophisticated advanced support. Question from Georgia. I don't want to take any words out of Fatima Zahra's mouth. But to me, I think individual countries have access to their own capacity support from the CBIT. At the same time, there are great opportunities and learning potential from having a platform for countries to share experiences and lessons learned, and to have more universal access, if you will, to the tools as well as information that individually through the CBITs, they might not be getting the comparable sets of information, because in a way, based on the national priorities, right? And I also, having attended the global coordination meetings, those are rich troves of informations and lessons and also enlightenments also on the Jeff side, because they provide opportunities to hear directly from countries as they articulate, what they have done, as well as where they want to take the experiences of the ETF forward. And it's just more of a powerful experience to be able to do that collectively, where everybody has an opportunity to contribute. So, over to you.
Thank you, Chiz, and thank you for the questions. For Jenny, so basically that's what we are trying to do, to see what are the needs of the networks. We know that there are differences even within each of the networks. There are quite some differences, but we are trying to accommodate for that in the trainings, in the regional trainings that we have. For instance, we have this training on NDC, deep dive into NDC tracking. So for more advanced countries, they can work with their own data, and therefore, they can already go home because they do have that data that is needed basically to fill the tables, to do the projections. They might have already the projections done and so on. So they are at a more advanced level to be able to actually get into the tables and do it. For other countries that are less advanced, we have also the possibility to work with just demonstration data, and then they know how it works, and then they know how to do it when they apply the right tools and so on. So we do try to accommodate the various needs in the trainings that we have. And as I mentioned, for instance, for a couple of networks, we saw, because we wanted to kind of concentrate on NDC tracking this year, but we realized that most countries in, for instance, a network do not have still the basis on ETF. Then we need to start with that first. And then next year we go to the deep dive on NDC tracking. So we are taking these needs and the various capabilities of countries in a network into consideration in doing the trainings. And also, of course, there is the aspects of in-country training that, of course, takes into account the country needs specifically. And also we are doing, as I mentioned, this exchange of experiences so that countries can learn from each other. Yeah, I will be very quick.
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. And for Georgia, so basically the old platform is still functional, actually. So you can still find it, but we are hoping to retire it after tomorrow so that we can have we will have the new platform. But please come tomorrow, and otherwise, if you are not able to come, we can discuss the platform later, bilaterally. Okay.
Well, thank you so much to both of you. Let's give them a round of applause. Yeah, thank you. Okay, let me now invite Milan, Kirsten, Anna, and Sumit to the podium. So I'll first invite Sumit. Sumit, he is from Council or Council on Energy, Environment and Water, which is based in India, Delhi. Yeah, Sumit, please. Floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jigme, for inviting me in this event. Yeah, I'm from the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, and we are a policy research think tank based in India. And I lead the climate negotiations program at CEEW. So we have been working in the areas of climate transparency and capacity building for more than 5 years. And since the ETF rulebook was agreed upon, we were thinking about, how do we sort of explore towards supporting better understanding on capacity building and transparency, so that developing countries are better prepared when they sort of go ahead and report their BTR. So on that, we developed a tool called Capacity Building Assessment Matrix. The idea behind developing this tool was to translate the qualitative analysis of capacity building on transparency towards a quantitative analysis, right? And we also did a study on India on that particular front. But then what we realized that, this tool has a lot of scalability towards understanding the country-specific needs on transparency. It could also help in making proposals for the CBIT, and also develop improvement plans, also identify areas of flexibilities that would be needed towards reporting on BTRs. And finally, it would also lead towards undertaking the technical analysis on same right. So on that, we collaborated with the Secretariat last year in the month of March towards developing a newer tool called ETF-CBT, where the architecture would be based on the earlier tool of the capacity building assessment matrix. So the overall framework, basically, of the tool that we have developed right now is based on 3 building blocks. The core of this building block is the building block 1, where we have sort of developed capacity indicators. I'll deep dive a lot more on capacity building indicators in my subsequent slide. But on these capacity building indicators, we have what we have devised is that we have take 3 different types of assessment. The first one is the need assessment, where we sort of see, against these capacity indicators that we have developed, how many countries have identified their needs in their BURs as well as national communications, which they have already published. Now, again, in the second assessment, we explore that, against these capacity indicators, how many countries have already been given support within their national communication and the BUR project proposals, which they have already received. And lastly, in the capacity assessment, we explore for the evidence against countries' capacity towards these indicators through a Likert scale scoring system on a scale of high, moderate, and low. This basically we explore for the evidence in the BU and national communication whether the country has already developed that capacity or not, and we also interact with experts, domestic experts on that particular matter. Right. And lastly, when we sort of move ahead and when we look at each indicator for across the 3 assessments, we come across 3 different combinations of it, right? If the capacity is built and the support has been received, so that means, if the capacity is high and the support has been received, that means we can somehow sort of relate that, the capacity has been built and we've been able to sustain them. But even if the capacity, suppose, is moderate and despite the support being received, we see that, there are capacity retention challenges in those capacity indicators, and there is area, there's a scope for us to look into those capacity indicators. And lastly, where we sort of, look at the indicators where there is no capacity and there's not being able to support. So these are the areas of concern where, where a much more deeper analysis needs to be done. Let's try to understand, what exactly these capacity indicators are. So towards developing these capacity indicators, we deep dive inside the various official submissions of the government as well as the reports published by CGE to identify what are the best practices adopted globally to be able to report on the BTR side. And these were broadly divided into 3 buckets. One is the institutional capacity, where we are looking into the formal legal arrangements process. The second is the technical and the technological capacity, where we're looking into the guidelines, tools, and techniques, as well as technology to be able to report on climate transparency. And lastly, the procedural capacity, where we're looking at, to what extent, a country is able to report on all the elements of the reporting obligations, right? And then these we have included across these indicators we have identified for various areas of reporting, such as inventory, mitigation, and DC adaptation, and means of implementation. Let's try to understand this entire assessment with the help of an example. So the example, this is just an illustration process. So within the institutional capacity, as you saw in the last slide, there were three broader categories, which is enabling environment, roles and responsibilities, and process and procedures. And within this, these are the sub-indicators. Now, if you look at for the coordinating body, which is the first indicator of the enabling environment, if the capacity assessment, if we find the indicator is a bit more higher and the support has been received, so this is an indication that, the combination of three assessment will come up, will say that, okay, the capacity is built and somehow it has been retained, right? But similarly, if you look in the financial arrangement, even if the support has been received, and if the capacity assessment says it's moderate, so that means there is some retention issue, or there might be some other challenges that, a country might be facing towards ensuring consistent financial support in this particular indicator, right? And similarly, if you look at the sectoral and thematic leads in the roles and responsibility category, where the capacity is low and there's no support, so that's an area that nobody has even identified that needs to be addressed moving forward. So this is basically, how the outcomes would look like at the end of the assessment, and that's where I was speaking about in the initial slides, where we are trying to sort of understand the capacity building efforts, not just in form of qualitative way, but also in form of the quantitative analysis. Right? Now, if you look at it, this is the first illustration where we're talking about assessment outcomes. Within the institutional capacity, if we assume that there are about 100 indicators, 69 indicators are in moderate, and then in 31 indicators are like in a low capacity. That means they are zero capacity. So the overall baseline capacity is like moderate, 69%. So moderate gets a score of 0.5. So overall baseline capacity of the institutional capacity is about 30%. And when we look at individually on the need assessment, so it appears that approximately for 71%, the country would have received the support, or they've identified the need, and for 77%, the country would have received the support, and so on for the other two categories, as you can see. And then when we look at all the three integration, when we look at the need assessment, capacity assessment, as well as the support assessment together, the integration outcomes look something like this, where we will be able to identify, like 23% is the area where needs are not being even identified, and this needs to be looked upon, and 31% are the areas where capacity challenges exist despite support. And then, in the case of technology and technical capacity, 20% is the area where we've already built the capacity and sustained them. So this is just an illustration of how the entire outcomes would look like. We would know the entire, underlying reasoning behind each and every reasons about it. But then it gives us, multiple ways to analyze our capacity building efforts in a different outlay altogether, right? And this actually plays a very important role towards understanding and even tracking our capacity building efforts moving forward, which usually gets driven away within the text as and when we discuss about it, right? With this, I just conclude my presentation. I think I'm happy to answer all your questions which you may have, and also walk you through the Excel model post the session in case anybody's interested. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sumit. In my view, this tool has a potential to provide some degree of objectivity to what is otherwise very subjective assessment of this capacity building needs assessment. The likelihood of getting two completely different results from a same country is quite high under the current scenario. If you have any questions, please hold on to that. We will try to find some time at the end. Next, we'll move to Milan to speak on another piece of work that we have been collaborating for a couple of years now. So, the floor is all yours, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jigme. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Milan from GIR, Greenhouse Gas Inventory and Research Center of Korea. I am very pleased to be here again in Bonn, and thank you, Secretariat, for inviting me and also organizing today's side event. So I'd like to talk about the training program, which is annually co-organized by GIR and the UNFCCC Secretariat that specifically focuses on greenhouse gas inventories. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Okay, the program is one of 3 training modules under the CASTT umbrella of the Secretariat, and the CASTT here stands for Climate Action and Support Transparency Training. Our program is a 3-week intensive training on greenhouse gas inventory preparation for national experts from developing countries. It takes place in Seoul, Korea, and starts in July. Anyone who is interested shall go through the screening process, which includes submission of an application form, required documents, and interview. So it's not like trainees are selected or decided by nomination of each country's national focal point, ministry, or department. I'll talk about eligibility in the latest slide. Costs, including flights and accommodation, are funded by GIR and the UNFCCC Secretariat. Okay, so if we go back to the beginning of this training program, in 2017, the UNFCCC Secretariat and GIR joined hands to deliver the training program in which transparency agenda is highlighted. So this is when the program was named as UNFCCC-GIR CASTT program on greenhouse gases. Since then, two organizers has been planning and delivering the training together. When an MOU was signed in 2017, GIR also expanded its cooperation with one of its most valuable partners, the PEEB Secretariat. So if you look at the progress so far, we have a total of 190 trainees from 86 countries between 2017 and 2020 who successfully completed the program. As you can see from the bar graph, most of our trainees were from Asian and African country parties, followed by Americas, Oceania, and Europe. National experts who are eligible shall be either current government officials, consultants, or researchers of non-Annex 1 parties who are involved in climate transparency-related activities. It would be better if the person has experience in greenhouse gas inventory. So this is a rough schedule for this year's program. So as you can see, lecture topics include sectoral MRV methodologies. It includes all 4 sectors from the IPCC, so energy, AFOLU, waste, and IPPU, and also emission projection and compilations, as well as country presentations and exercises. It will be a very busy 3 weeks for trainees, but after all, it's a 3-week intensive training. So they will learn much more than they expected and return home with knowledge and valuable experiences that will help them do better with developing national greenhouse gas inventory. So our curriculum in overall involves individual and group presentation, interactive discussion, and exercises. I believe it is definitely the best thing about this program, as the training is not done in one-way communication, but in interactive way using different learning methods. So we ask all trainees to submit daily journals, and they are uploaded at GIR website for everyone's view. So how lectures were conducted, how trainees find it, so whether it was interesting, challenging, useful, helpful, such personal experiences are all written in those journals. Trainees will also be attending the International Greenhouse Gas Conference, IGC, in the last week of the program. Until 2019, trainees attended IGC as a mere participant and did not have a chance to take an active role. But last year, we organized a special session for our training participants. So a number of nominated trainees were on the stage as speaker and representing each continent. So we were very lucky to have Mr. Jigme as a moderator for that particular session. And I'd like to say thank you again to Mr. Jigme. Trainees made valuable input at the conference as a panelist, and this year we will do the same because as we had a very successful panel discussion back in 2022. So the program is not only about lectures every day throughout the whole 3-week period, we do have some fun parts as well. So there is a day tour for cultural experiences, and also a site visit to facilities which demonstrate good practices of local governments for green and sustainable city. After three weeks of intensive training course, we have a graduation ceremony and to congratulate trainees for successfully completing the program and appreciate their active participation. We had 2 valedictorians last year who excelled in every aspect of the training, including attendance, presentation, and active participation during lectures. So I'm already so much excited to see who will be this year's valedictorian. So last year's cohort was excellent, so I have very high expectations for next rounds of applicants and trainees. So on the screen it says expectation, but really it's my hope that national experts who are competitive and also eager to learn to prepare their application and submit it by the deadline. In this regard, it is very important that national focal points of non-Annex 1 parties share information timely and swiftly. But as you may well know, they are always busy, and there has always been a considerable number of individuals who tell us that they missed the deadline for submission. So to tackle that issue, we have launched a newsletter. Any interested individual can subscribe to our newsletter at the program website. We send a excuse me. We send a letter directly to your inbox before application opens, when application opens, and also before the deadline as a reminder, so our subscribers can never miss the deadline. It is the fastest way to keep yourself updated on the program. Well, as a result, we saw a significant increase in the number of applications, and we were very much pleased to see that newsletters were, in fact, very effective. Since we had a very exciting training session last year, we made a number of videos to share our memories with our trainees, as well as those who plan to apply for the next round. So we hope those videos are of use and informative. Well, okay, that's all from me. For the further details, please feel free to contact me. So I'll be happy to provide any more information and answer any questions you have. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Milan. There is one more impact impact of this training or similar kind of training that we run, and that is this whole thing of creating community of practitioners. Because of the fact that these participants are together for 2-3 weeks, they developed very good personal relationship, and hence, leave training as a very close group of peers, which they can take it back home and can be a useful resources. So that also is something that comes out of this kind of training program, and I think and something that we ought to recognize as well. Let's move to our third speaker, Kirsten. I'll not try to say your program or organization, so I'll leave it that to you.
No, it's fine. Thank you very much, Jigme. So it's an honor for me to be here in the panel, as I joined the climate community for quite some time, and now I'm part of the sector, the transport sector, because all we know is the NDCs have to be implemented, and this happens in the sector. So thanks for the previous speakers to show, like, on a meta level how the general ministries can be supported to identify the capacities. And now I will show you the materials. All of them are open source, available online for you to use, how you can achieve mitigation in the sector transport, as this is like globally, transport sector has a quarter of the emissions. So it's important that we also decarbonize this sector. I will try to stay brief. I also included a video, which I think due to the time I will not show, also to have enough time for my colleague Anna, who will demonstrate you the possibilities for another sector. And also congratulations to the Climate Secretariat panel, as this is a quite gender-balanced session. Good to see you. First of all, a little overview about my presentation. So, as I said, about the available tools and possibilities, but also 2 deep dives. One is about the NDCs regarding transport, and another one for our soon-to-be launched MRV online course. So let me start about who we are, and this is quite small. Okay, so then You have to listen to me. So we are a team of over 30 experts working globally with partner countries in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. We are supporting especially the Global South, so all the materials, which I will also demonstrate to you, were developed in close consultation with the partners. So they are tested, but all of them you can also adapt to your circumstances. For example, change the language if English is not your first language, or whatever you would like to do. And we are financed by the German Ministry through the ICI. So one is the German Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Protection. The other one is the Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature Conservation, Nuclear Safety, and Consumer. It's a long name. We are financed by Germany, okay? So if you would like to know how to get to know us better, is actually we are on Twitter. We have also a YouTube channel, which you can see recent testimonials, training materials. We have a series of webinars regarding also a later product which we developed together with the Climate Secretariat. I will demonstrate later. We have the website and a newsletter. And our latest flagship project is the Transport Data Commons, which is also a prototype for a global open source database for climate-related transport data. Because as you know, data is a crucial part. If you do not have the right data in the right place, your mitigation will be maybe underestimated or overestimated. So data are crucial for this. But let's have another view into our website. So in our website, we have also, because we're working on this topic now for over 10 years, the stories of change, where we, for example, elaborated with our partner country Colombia about how they developed their NDC measures in transport and how they also set up their MRV system. So for us, it's important to share the lessons learned by our countries and also their challenges for when it comes to MRV in the sector of transport. The highlight here is actually the toolbox, and so I hereby will also show you more details about the transparency toolbox. The toolkit itself captures a lot of different topics, but let me hereby show you why we are here. It's about MRV, right? So one product I would like to highlight is the compendium of greenhouse gas baseline and monitoring, which we are developing and updating currently with the Climate Secretariat. So besides the national topics, we have here also adding a chapter on urban mobility. I think a lot of you will be aware that urbanization is one of the trends in countries, and therefore especially the motorization is also in growing, traffic jams, congestions. It's a long story. So we can have here a tool for you to show how you can, which data would be important for mitigation measures, what is effective, what are other countries sharing their experience about which tool can help them. The second one is a data collection template developed with the Ministry for Transport in Kenya. So it's actually, we had a close consultation with them, and this template, we have also a tutorial video for this, is ready to use. As I say, it is also open source, so you can download it, adapt it to your purpose. And it's a step-by-step approach to collect the right data, but also to assess the data you are collecting for transport. I just spoke about urbanization. So with the Mobilize Your City team, we developed the monitoring and reporting approach for greenhouse gas emissions on the city level. They are also working globally, so they have also all the documents available in French, English, and Spanish. And last but not least, our transport inventory and greenhouse gas emission reporting tool, long name, just call it Trigger. We developed this together with the Ministry for Transport in Vietnam. It's an Excel tool, so also here we have a tutorial available. It's about to compile a GHG inventory for the transport sector. All these tools are clustered in the 3 phases which we identify if you want to mitigate emissions in the transport sector. So phase 1 is define the scope and boundaries, phase 2, scenarios and modeling, and phase 3, the monitoring. For all of these steps, we have experience from other countries where you can get inspirations, but we have also tools, as I said, like open source. You can download them, adapt them. And if you have questions, of course, always reach out to us. I promise a little deep dive into another tool, which is now focusing especially on the NDCs. So we have the tracker of climate strategies for transport. where we are assessing on a regular basis the submitted NDCs and also the long-term strategies regarding their transport relevance. And we have over, I think, 34 indicators. So it's not only about mitigation, but is transport mentioned in the NDC or long-term strategy related to adaptation, for example? Or what are the different measures? It can be fuel economy, it can be a lot of things. The beauty of this is here you can find inspiration for your own NDCs, but you can also check your country's NDC regarding what is written in when it comes to the NDCs and long-term strategies. So long-term strategies, as you know, countries are still working on this, they are submitting it, so there are not so many information there yet, but of course for the NDCs. And as you see here, we have also a little analysis about regarding the submitted NDCs, how transport was mentioned there, in which category, for example, low carbon fuels and energies vectors. We have also analysis from last year, May 2022, regarding the regions. So if you want to learn more about this, also welcome to do this. It's an online tool, so you can play around, indicate your interests, what you want to learn, and what do you want to see. Last but not least, our newest, and today actually I'm hijacking this event for the launch, or pre to have launched, the Transport Data from MRV to Action online course. So this is also specialized for the transport sector. It's based on our also collaboration with the Climate Secretariat regarding MRV trainings in the region. So the training in Kenya in 2020, as well as just a month ago, we conducted another training in Vietnam for the Transport and Environment Ministries regarding how to implement, how to design an MRV system in the sector, adapting to your needs and your priorities. The beauty of the self-paced course is actually that you will guide it by two personas, Ms. Tarachi Noor and Mr. Duang Dang, to give you a little bit support regarding the different steps and also the content. So the online course is captured in 3 modules. We know a lot of you are totally aware about climate change and the connection to emissions, but maybe your colleagues are not, they are new to the topic, especially in the transport sector. We realize that there is a little bit groundworking need to be done regarding what is the Paris Agreement, what are NDCs. And so if you are more advanced, for example, you can skip modules because you're already aware, perfect, then just you can go directly dive into module 3, for example, and do the calculations. I would appreciate also if you could still have a step into module 2 regarding the basic calculations. How to set the boundaries, how do you calculate emissions for different approaches, bottom up, top down, what are the difference? And with this, I come to my last slide, a little summary of this new course. So it's on Atingi, which is a Learn platform. It's free of charge, just go there, sign up. It's designed for officials in the transport sector, but of course it's open for everyone. We have, also based on our 10 years work, a huge bouquet of experience, lectures, but also case countries. We will organize in a duration after the launch meet and greets with the experts. So this will be in person 45 minutes where you can ask direct questions to the experts regarding the topic, for example, GHG inventory compilation in the transport sector or the baseline development in the Indo-Bus and Sutri-Nama project in Indonesia. What are the experience? What were the challenges? And you will also get a certificate in the end. Thank you very much. I hope you will be inspired to see more. We have also another video online on our YouTube channel where you will meet the personas, but also more information about the course. And hopefully see you in one of the meet and greets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen. So we'll move to our final speaker. Anna. Floor is yours, please.
Just checking the presentation. Yeah, there we go. Great. Yeah, hello. transparency experts. I'm going to bring in a topic which might be a non-category for you, buildings, because we don't find it in the formal IPCC categories, but it's a very important topic to talk about. And I'll explain to you why. Just really quickly where I come from. So I'm part of a program called Program for Energy Efficiency in Buildings, or short PEEB, a French-German initiative with a goal to make the building sector zero emissions and resilient. And it's implemented by the French Development Bank AFD, GIZ, and the French Agency for an Ecological Transition on the technical side. Yeah, and just really quickly why we should talk about buildings. So I think the transport colleagues are ahead in terms of MRV methodologies, but we're ahead in terms of emissions. So the building sector is responsible for 37% of greenhouse gas emissions from energy. Sometimes a bit overlooked, but yeah, a sector that keeps rising quickly. And just when you look at the figures that the IEA tells us, by 2060, our built floor area will double. So it's really an issue we need to address very urgently because, yeah, it's a very prominent sector. And maybe just like, because we often overlook this as well, we often think about operational emissions, so kind of the energy that we use in buildings, but we also need to think about building materials. Okay, and just really quickly, when we look at the NDCs, I mean, buildings are not a category, so we actually went through all of the NDCs to have a look. And the good news is that 87% of countries actually already include action on buildings. That's very good, but then when you look a bit deeper, we saw that 140 NDCs have specific measures on buildings, and that could be either in mitigation, we have a few examples there, could also be in adaptation. But then when you look at how many of these NDCs actually have quantified targets for their buildings activities, it's very little. So it's only 29 NDCs. And that brings us to the question why we should talk about MRV in buildings. And I don't know if you know him. He's from like a TV program for children. That's the Count von Count, and he loves numbers. And I guess I'm talking to a room full of data and MRV experts, and you're quite convinced that there's a value in numbers. But when we think about kind of like buildings and that why we need better data, I mean, first of all, I mean, in many countries we really lack data on the building sector, how much it emits in terms of emissions, which subsectors of the building sector are the most responsible, the trends, what we expect in the future. And that is partly, I think, one of the reasons could be that, I mean, we do have a lot of buildings experts in countries, but they often lack the climate and MRV knowledge, and vice versa. So I think there's really a bit of a gap between these two sets of expertise. Yeah, and there's still a need for robust and efficient MRV methodologies. I mean, many of kind of like the established standards, they just address, let's say, air conditioners, for example, but not the entire building, which is what we should look at, and we really want to reduce the emissions. And it's often a bit complex, and there's really a question of how could you apply that more practically. And that is actually a big issue for the whole question of climate finance, because we see there is not that much climate finance at the moment going towards buildings. And I mean, we had representatives of the facilities here, and there is movement. I mean, we just were successful with 11 countries for a proposal for the GCF on buildings, but that had a lot of methodological discussions behind it, and so we see we're on a path to get better there. I just want to quickly advertise the compendium by the UNFCCC, was already launched last year, that basically gives you kind of the basics of how you would actually monitor greenhouse gas emissions from buildings and construction, very important piece of work. And what we need now is to really put that into practice and apply that in reality. Yeah, and that brings me to my wrap-up. So where do we stand now, and what is needed to basically increase, on the one hand, the data, but then really kind of the action on buildings. So I'm going to be speaking from our own work experience, and I said, like, I found a little mistake. So I said in 2024, we're actually going to start working on this in 2023, but it was a very fast year, so that's why. So several work streams that are relevant. So on the one hand is really this question of baseline studies of CO2 emissions on buildings. It's kind of looking at what data is there, doing the modeling, actually crunching the numbers as a basis for policy, but also for climate financing. Then we'll be working on financial incentive programs for green buildings. So how could you mobilize all that funding, like all that private investment in every country that goes towards the building sector to make that green? And then a very interesting strand of work is going to be on the question of Article 6 for financing programs in the building sector, because we think there's a really a large potential, but of course we have to be careful in terms of like how we design this to be effective in terms of reducing emissions. And how we're going to share this, I mean, we're very much into implementation, but part of what we do is we will develop standardized trainings. So we might have something looking a bit similar to what was presented here, but very specific on buildings. And we will share this throughout the networks of the Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, Secretariat hosted by UNEP, and that's really the buildings community, but then we also want to go beyond. And last but not least, we're exploring with the colleagues from the UNFCCC Secretariat kind of like how we could bring the knowledge and the best practices to you and really share and support all the professionals working on these topics. And I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Okay, so we'll now open floor for a question or two. Looks like everyone is happy. So in that case, there, at the end.
Good day. My name is Ruth Spencer. I'm a local community representative from Antigua and Barbuda. It was good to hear, especially about the buildings and the support, because I went into a side event yesterday and I got the impression that adaptation is the only thing that takes place in communities. But we have to engage in mitigation as well. We have building codes now that require us to have water. We have to build a certain way. So the support, also the financing, needs to come down to build back better the homes and buildings in our communities, because these are the people most at risk. We suffer from hurricanes, and when those winds and crazy winds and flooding take place, the people at the local level with the poor housing, they suffer the most. So I think we have to start, thinking in a holistic way that the people at the community level, it's just adaptation. We need to keep our focus very people-centered. And I'm hoping that the financing that goes to governments will have platforms, channels where they can be filtered down to the local people so that they have opportunities as well to build resilience to the climate impacts, to the storms, to the hurricanes. And I'm glad I came in. At least I know the information is there, and I will seek to see how much our local groups can benefit from some of your ideas and suggestions. Thank you very much.
Do you want to react? A quick reaction?
I just agree.
Yeah.
No, I think you're very right. I mean, it's both an adaptation and a mitigation question, and it's about like actually livable homes, and it's the question kind of like how we can, kind of channel the money to actually support that. Yeah.
All right, looks like we'll need to close the session. Before we do that, let me invite you to give a round of applause to our panel members here. Thank you so much. If you do have additional questions, you can scan the QR code on the screen, and you can submit your questions, and we will make sure that our panel members get your questions. Further, I believe all of these presentations will be uploaded on the side event side. So in a day or two's time, you should be able to get access to all these materials, including contact details. And again, if you are interested to get in touch with any of the panel members, and if you have challenges finding right contact details, just get in touch with us and we'll facilitate. We'll make sure that you are able to get in touch with right people. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.